The funeral director had warned me that grief could make people see things that weren't there. Hallucinations are common, he'd said gently. You might think you see your loved one in the crowd. But I wasn't hallucinating the blonde woman in the third row wearing my mother's emerald necklace. The Burmese emerald suite, necklace, earrings, and bracelet had been my grandmother's, passed to my mother on her wedding day. Worth $400,000, according to the insurance appraisal. It had vanished from Mom's house 3 weeks ago, along with several other pieces sometime during her final days in hospice, and now it gleamed against the black dress of a woman I'd never seen before. I gripped the pew in front of me, trying to process what I was seeing. My husband Tom sat beside me, his hand on my back in what should have been a comforting gesture, but I noticed he kept glancing toward the third row. Who is that? I whispered. He followed my gaze and went rigid. I don't know, probably one of your mom's friends. My mother's friends were all in their 70s and 80s, occupying the front section of the church. This woman couldn't be older than 35, with the kind of blonde that came from a high-end salon and a dress that showed she knew exactly how good she looked in it. She was also wearing my mother's ruby ring. Father Martinez began the service, but I couldn't focus on his words. Every time I glanced back, I caught more details. The diamond tennis bracelet Mom wore every Sunday. The pearl drops that had been her mother's. Piece by piece, the missing collection adorned the stranger like she was a jewelry display. When we stood for the first hymn, she turned slightly, and our eyes met. She didn't look away. Instead, she smiled, a small, knowing smile that made my stomach drop, and touched the emerald necklace deliberately. I need air, I whispered to Tom, and slipped out the side door. In the courtyard, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos I'd taken for the police report. Every missing piece was accounted for, decorating that woman like trophies. Mrs. Winters. I spun around to find Detective Patricia Morse, the officer handling Mom's theft case. She was in plain clothes, a black pantsuit appropriate for a funeral. Detective? What are you doing here? Following up on a tip. Someone called about seeing the stolen jewelry. She studied my face. Was it you? No, I stopped. You can see it too. The woman inside, third row? Veronica Pearson. Interesting that she'd show up here. Detective Morse pulled out her phone, showing me a driver's license photo. Same blonde, same sharp features. Recognize her? No. Should I? She's been on our radar for a while. Tends to befriend married men with access to valuable items. We've never been able to prove anything. She paused. Is your husband inside? Yes, he's. The implication hit me like cold water. No, Tom wouldn't. Detective Morse's expression was carefully neutral. How long was your mother in hospice? 6 weeks. And your husband had access to her house? We both did. We were checking on it, getting her mail, making sure. I stopped. Tom had volunteered for those tasks, insisted I stay with Mom while he handled the house. I'd been grateful. Mrs. Winters, the detective said gently, I need you to go back inside. Act normal. Can you do that? You're going to arrest her? She's wearing $400,000 in stolen jewelry to the victim's funeral. Yes, I'm going to arrest her, but I need to do this carefully. If she's working with someone. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. If Tom was involved, they needed him to reveal himself. I walked back into the church on unsteady legs. Tom looked relieved when I slid beside him. Feeling better? He whispered. Yes. I laced my fingers through his, noting how his palm was sweating. The service continued, readings, hymns, memories shared. When my aunt spoke about Mom's generosity, mentioning how she'd always promised her jewelry would stay in the family, I felt Tom's hand twitch. Finally, Father Martinez invited everyone to share their memories. Various friends stood, telling stories of Mom's kindness, her volunteer work, her laughter. Then the blonde woman stood. I didn't know Mrs. Morrison well, she began, her voice carrying clearly. But her generosity touched my life. She touched the necklace. Such beautiful gifts through someone who knew I treasure them. The church went silent. My aunts exchanged shocked looks, recognizing the jewelry. Tom's hand became a vice on mine. That's lovely, Father Martinez said uncertainly. Would you like to share more about? Actually, Detective Morse stood from the back row. I'd like to speak with you, Miss Pearson. Outside. Veronica's composure cracked slightly. I'm attending a funeral. and wearing stolen property. We can do this quietly, or I can arrest you in front of everyone. Your choice. These were gifts. Veronica's voice rose. I have proof. Perfect. You can show me outside. But Veronica wasn't moving. Instead, she turned to look directly at Tom. Tell them, baby. Tell them you gave these to me. Every head of the church swiveled toward us. Tom released my hand, his face cycling through expressions: panic, calculation, resignation. Tom, my voice sounded strange, distant. He stood slowly. Julia, I can explain. Explain? I laughed, sharp and bitter. Explain how my mother's jewelry ended up on your mistress. It wasn't like that. Your mom was dying, she didn't need. My dying mother didn't need her family heirlooms. My voice rose. So you stole them for your girlfriend? Fiancé, Veronica corrected, holding up her left hand. My mother's 3-carat diamond solitaire caught the light from the stained glass windows. The church erupted. My aunts shouted. My cousins stood. Father Martinez tried to restore order. Through it all, Detective Morse moved steadily down the aisle toward Veronica. Mr. Winters, she called to Tom, I'll need to speak with you as well. I didn't steal anything, Tom protested. I had a key. Julia gave me access. To care for the house, not rob it. Your mom was dying. The jewelry was just sitting there. Veronica deserved. My mother wasn't even dead yet. The words ripped from my throat. You were stealing from her while I sat by her bedside. Detective Morse had reached Veronica, who was backing away. Miss Pearson, you're under arrest for receiving stolen property. He gave them to me. He said his wife didn't care about jewelry, that it would be wasted. I never said that, Tom interjected. No. What about the text where you said she was too boring to appreciate nice things? Or when you promised to marry me once you got your share of her mother's estate? I sank into the pew. Around me, my family closed ranks, hands on my shoulders, voices offering support. But I could only stare at Tom, the stranger wearing my husband's face. How long? I asked quietly. He couldn't meet my eyes. Julia. How long? 2 years. 2 years. I thought about all the times he'd worked late, traveled for business, been too tired for dinner. All the times he'd volunteered to check on Mom's house alone. Detective Morse had cuffed Veronica, who was now crying, mascara running. This isn't fair, he promised. He said once the old lady died. Shut up, Tom snapped. The old lady? My Aunt Margaret, Mom's sister, stood. That old lady was a saint who welcomed you into our family, Tom. She defended you when we said you weren't good enough for Julia. And this is how you repay her, Uncle Robert added, stealing from her deathbed. I want a lawyer, Veronica announced. Good idea, Detective Morse said. Mr. Winters, I need you to come with me as well. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But we need to discuss your involvement in the theft. Tom looked at me desperately. Julia, please, I made a mistake. We can work through this. Work through this? I stood, finally finding my strength. You stole my dying mother's jewelry to give to your mistress. Fiancé. Who wore it to her funeral. There's nothing to work through. As Detective Morse let them out, Veronica still protesting about gifts and promises, the church slowly settled. My mother's picture smiled from the front, and I wondered if somewhere she was laughing at the absolute soap opera her funeral had become. Well, Aunt Margaret said finally, your mother always said Tom was too smooth. Guess she was right even at the end. Father Martinez cleared his throat. Perhaps we should continue with the service. We did, somehow. My cousin read a poem. My uncle shared stories. We sang Mom's favorite hymn. And through it all, I felt strangely calm. The worst had already happened. Tom's betrayal, the theft, the humiliation. It was all in the open now. After the service in the reception hall, Detective Morse found me. We've recovered all the jewelry, she said. Miss Pearson was very cooperative once she realized your husband had lied about owning the pieces. What happens now? They'll both be charged. Theft, receiving stolen property, conspiracy. Your husband admitted to taking the jewelry but claims it was a loan. A loan from a woman in hospice. Yes, his story needs work. She paused. I'm sorry this happened at your mother's funeral. Actually, I said, surprising myself, I think Mom would have loved it. She always enjoyed a good drama, and she never liked Tom. This was like her final review. That evening, after the guests had gone and the flowers had been distributed, I sat in Mom's empty house with the recovered jewelry spread before me. Each piece had a story, a history. The emerald suite alone had survived 3 generations. Tom had seen only their monetary value, but Mom had seen their true worth, connections to the women who'd worn them before, promises of the women who'd wear them after. My phone had over 50 messages from Tom. I deleted them unread and called a divorce attorney instead. My husband stole from my dying mother to impress his mistress, I told him. That's a new one, he said. But helpful for the divorce. When can you come in? I fingered the emerald necklace, thinking of Mom's last coherent words to me. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle, sweetheart. Tomorrow, I said. I have a funeral to finish today. Later, I learned the full story. Tom and Veronica had met at a conference 2 years ago. He promised to leave me after things settled down. First after his promotion, then after the holidays, then after Mom got sick. He'd been stealing from Mom's house for months, small pieces at first, things he thought I wouldn't notice. Veronica, for her part, genuinely believed Tom was rich and generous. She'd been posting photos of gifts from my love on Instagram, which is how Detective Morse had been alerted. A sharp-eyed follower recognized the distinctive emerald suite from a magazine feature about estate jewelry. The trial was swift. Tom pled guilty to avoid a harsher sentence, got 2 years probation and had to pay restitution. Veronica got community service and had to return everything. Their relationship didn't survive the first court appearance. Tom's last email to me before I blocked him everywhere was a masterpiece of self-pity. He was the real victim, apparently. Seduced by a younger woman, trapped in a loveless marriage, forced to desperate measures. He actually used the phrase driven to it by circumstances. I wore the emerald suite to the divorce proceedings. The judge, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, noticed immediately. Beautiful jewelry, she commented. Thank you. It was my mother's. My ex-husband tried to give it to his mistress. Did he now? She reviewed the papers with renewed interest. The divorce was finalized in record time. I got everything except Tom's debts from financing Veronica's lifestyle. A year later, I wore the emerald suite again, this time to an exhibition of Mom's art collection, pieces Tom had never known existed because he'd never bothered to really know her. The charity auction raised $50,000 for the hospice that had cared for her. I still have the Instagram posts Veronica made, screenshots Detective Morse had given me for the case. Blessed by my generous man, one caption read under a photo of her wearing Mom's pearls. The comments from her friends, so lucky. He's a keeper. When's the wedding? Aged like milk. Sometimes I wonder if Mom somehow orchestrated the whole thing from beyond. She'd always said Tom would show his true colors eventually, that I just needed to pay attention. She was right, of course. Mothers usually are. I wear her jewelry often now, each piece a reminder that some things can't be stolen, only borrowed. Love, legacy, the bonds between mothers and daughters, those endure beyond death, beyond betrayal, beyond men who see treasure where they should see trust. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they lead to justice being served at a funeral. With a detective's hand on your shoulder and your mother's jewelry gleaming like evidence in the light of stained glass windows. Mom would have loved that part especially.